Hi guys, I want to talk to you today about whether I am a vegan or not. It's actually a harder question to answer than it sounds, and this is why. The other day I was in work, and in the bin behind me there's a ton of banana skins, and from me of course, and someone asked, and he said, "Who's on the bananas?" And yeah, I said it's me. That was about it, but I haven't actually been asked the question yet, am I a vegetarian or am I a vegan? But I can feel it coming, people are noticing that my diet's changed. I haven't kind of told anyone directly about the changes I've made, but people are starting to notice. And, I thought about what would I say if someone said, are you a vegetarian, are you a vegan, And I'm not really sure what I'd say, because how do you define something like, a vegan or a vegetarian? Well, some people might say it's, the moment you make the decision. The moment you make the decision that you're not going to eat any animal products anymore, from that day on, you are a vegan. Whether it's one day, or whether it's, whether it's been one day, or whether it's been a week or a year, the moment you make the decision and you know you're going to stick to it, that's the point at which you can kind of say that you're a vegan. Well, for me, kind of, I kind of appreciate that point, and I think that's very kind of a very good definition of that's a very good kind of line to draw in the sand. But for me, there's kind of a time element to it as well. I kind of have this kind of thing in my gut that says you have to have kind of done it for a certain length of time and been successful to be able to kind of give yourself that label. But it's just an arbitrary kind of date, amount of time you'd have to kind of pull out the air anyway. So, I think what really is happening is that you call yourself a vegetarian or a vegan when you're kind of happy with it, and that's kind of more in your head, because at the end of the day, these kind of labels are, whether it's you're vegetarian, you're lacto-ovo vegetarian, or you're vegan, or anything else, you're kind of alluding to a scale, really, because these are just labels which are pointing to somewhere on a scale. Obviously, in order to discuss diet and do studies about it and do that kind of thing, we need to kind of categorize things and put things into boxes. So, we need these labels to kind of have a meaningful discussion about diet, right? But they're not, nobody fits very well into a particular category. You might have someone who's a vegetarian, but who on occasion, once a year at Christmas might have some meat or something. Does that make them not a vegetarian anymore? I don't know. What about vegan? How about someone who's 90% vegan? Say, are they vegan? Maybe, maybe not. Let's say they don't think they're eating animal products, but they actually later found out that they had been and they didn't realise. Does that mean that for all that time that they thought they were vegan, they weren't? Well, we're just talking about labels here. And so in reality, you have this kind of scale where you have a large amount of animal products consumed at this end, and down the other end you have the kind of pure vegan kind of end, and everyone is somewhere on this scale, and these labels just kind of point to somewhere on this scale. And so at this kind of high meat end, you have your kind of paleo diet guys, and then you kind of come back into your standard kind of diet kind of range, where you're kind of pointing at this end of the scale still. And then as you come in, you're talking about your vegetarians, your lacto-ovo vegetarians, down to your lacto vegetarians, and then you're kind of moving more into towards, as you kind of go down the scale, you're moving more towards veganism as you cut out the dairy. And then even at 100% kind of dietary vegan kind of state, you could even kind of go further than that and say that, well, you're not really a vegan if you wear leather shoes, for example, or you wear fur, right? So you can even go further than that and say, well, you're not really a vegan until you kind of abstain from all animal products, whether it's consuming them or anything else. But in reality, it's almost impossible to kind of reach that kind of pure stage in the modern Western society. It's very difficult even to do it dietarily, and sure, so if you're going to start on this kind of vegan journey, it's very difficult to kind of cut it out immediately. Not because you don't want to, just for lack of knowledge, really. Unless you've got a lot of vegan friends, or you have a life coach who can kind of help you out and just kind of instantly kind of tell you everything you need to know, or at least kind of just guide you around the shops and that kind of thing, then it's going to be pretty much impossible to do it overnight, even if you're willing. So, for me, I don't have any vegan friends. I'm, on this kind of path on my own, in a sense, and it takes time. It takes time to learn everything. It takes time to find out what is vegan, what isn't. and so I'm getting closer to it as time goes on, but I certainly haven't done it overnight, and it's not that easy. So and I think the reason why I bring this up in this video is because for me I think it's helpful to think of things like that, think of this scale, because even though you might not know everything right now, you kind of start and you do what you do know, so you can cut out the obvious sources of meat and dairy as best you can, and you can do that, and that's one step, it's one step towards, on this scale, the vegan end, and when you take one step, the next step kind of reveals itself to you, so you kind of cut out all the immediate things that you know, and then you can kind of think, well, what's the next step, and it will appear, because you'll kind of be looking for it. And so maybe you might concentrate on breakfast and realise that, oh look, some of these cereals that you thought were vegan aren't, and so therefore you then go and pick the vegan ones. And it takes time to kind of learn which ones are and which ones aren't. But as it will come to your mind, it'll be like, oh, is this cereal really vegan or not? Is this bread vegan? Is this chocolate vegan? And you'll kind of keep asking those questions as you go, and as time goes on, these steps towards this end of the scale will appear in front of you for you to take, and each of these steps may be small, it might only be a small thing, just one thing, but one thing at a time. Over time you kind of gradually step towards this end until eventually you make it, and I think for me it's helpful because you don't need to beat yourself up if you consume stuff that contains animal products from time to time, or if you weren't aware of something. It's fine, it's just a journey, you just learn. And as time goes on, at some point in the future, you look back and you say, you know what, look at me now, look where I was 6 months ago, look where I was 12 months ago, look how far I've come, and I think that's one of the most satisfying things you can have in life, when you're trying to make some progress in something, and at some point you look back and you realise you have made progress, and yeah, so that's certainly a helpful way that I found to kind of look at things. Yeah, maybe it might help someone else to think of it in that way. Yeah, cheers.